All right, welcome everyone. I see that we have reached sort of a magic number of 20 attendees, so I'm going to start and let others join in. Before I start, I'm going to introduce myself, and then we'll have a quick poll. So just to get to know who you are, where you come from, that sort of thing. So my name is Sri Vedachalam. I work with the Environmental Policy Innovation Center. We are a think and do tank based kind of in DC, but also nationally. I work on a lot of water policy issues, and this is one of our sort of recent projects that we have embarked on, which is looking at the issue of trust in drinking water. And we'll talk about how this concept of a design challenge came about and what we intend to do with it. Before I get into the details, I'm going to ask you a quick poll on where you're coming from. So if you can click on that now. All right. So if you can see the results, a lot of folks from nonprofit organizations, academic institutions, and a few water utility folks as well. Thank you. Give me 1 second. Let's get started. All right, this is the information webinar for the Water Data Prize. As I said, it's hosted by the Environmental Policy Innovation Center, and we are excited to talk about the issue of trust in water utilities, water services, and one of the key elements of trust building comes from the consumer confidence reports, which are commonly known as water quality reports. They are required by EPA. Each of the 50,000 water utilities are required to issue them annually, and I know that that requirement is likely to change a bit according to some of the new laws and regulations that are coming out soon. It's meant to include information about water quality, violations, contaminant levels. Often utilities also provide information about source water, some background information, and this is really a critical element of establishing trust with customers. Um, this is especially useful in cities and utilities where there have been chronic water management concerns or lack of trust among the public. And we know from there's several studies, documented evidence that suggests there's high levels of mistrust among communities of color, and incidents like Flint and Newark and several others simply sort of add to that growing list of events. Um, but we've noticed some challenges with CCRs. So here's an example CCR from an Arkansas utility. It is what EPA would call a medium-sized utility. So it serves about 9,000 odd customers, and um, this is sort of a I wouldn't say this is a poor example. This is a good example of an average CCR, and I'm going to highlight some of the it's just sort of broad issues with CCRs, but not particular to this. Most utilities sort of prepare them using minimum requirements. There is a lot of complex scientific information about contaminant levels, health levels, and then the actual sort of regulatory standards, the elements and compounds themselves. There's a lot of chemistry, what their impacts are. There is a lot of text in this document, and sort of dense tables as well. Little to no context. Limited translation, I would say. Most reports are always, sort of in English. Very few utilities do provide translation services for Spanish speakers. There are some that use, Google tools or other online tools where you can translate a document, but that's only possible if it's a web document. Certainly not possible in a PDF. And then poor accessibility features. So if you are visually impaired, it becomes challenging to, let the computer sort of speak if items are not tagged correctly and are not properly placed on the document. The other problem is always these reports are sort of static. They provide information about water quality that comes from the previous year. So the reporting period starts from January and ends in December, and the report doesn't come out until July of next year. So you are talking about data that's easily 12 to 18 months old. And given all of this, it's really hard for consumers to figure out if is their water safe, right? That's the ultimate question we are trying to answer. Giving the customers the confidence that this water is safe for themselves, their family, and all of this simply does not produce that sort of an outcome. So and this is, as I said, this is not local or endemic to one particular utility or certain sized utilities. Large utilities also suffer from the same set of challenges. Here is an example, CCR, another one from a utility. This is based in California, and this would be what EPA would classify as a very large utility. This particular utility serves north of 200,000 customers, 200,000 residents. And this, has lots of graphics and colors splashed across the page. So it does provide some, sort of visual attractive features, gives a lot of information about conservation programs and, source water protection, where the water comes from. But when it comes to the actual, the data regarding the contaminant levels, we are back to the same problem. So we have dense tables, no context, lots of numbers, so we have the same problem across utilities of different sizes. That data does not have context, is very hard to understand, and doesn't leave consumers with, they're left not well informed at the end of this process. So we decided that we want to make some sort of a change in that. We are interested in sort of reimagining, rethinking water quality reports, and really going back to the root of why they are required in the first place, is to inspire confidence in our water quality, in our utilities, in the public institutions that that serve our communities. And so we opened that competition a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to walk through some of the details of the event and some particulars, and let so any of you ask questions at the end. The purpose of the event, of the challenge, really is that we can communicate. We believe that we can communicate complex data, creatively with consumers, and give them that confidence and trust in their water supply and the leadership. Existing CCRs are not meeting their potential. We know that they can do a lot more, but they're simply not able to for various reasons. But we also know at the same time there's a lot of tools and technologies available today that allow us to collect vast amounts of data and then share them quickly. And we should be able to integrate those in our existing platforms, that serve our utilities. And we want to spotlight those ideas, those innovative ideas, and work with decision makers at the local utilities, state agencies, and EPA, and integrate those and bring them to our regular sort of reporting system. And overall, our intent is to improve public trust where it is clearly warranted. We know that there are some cities, there are some utilities that are clearly doing a great job, and not to say that others aren't, but in case, even in cities that are doing, there is discrepancy between certain residents who simply do not trust the water because they don't trust the local government, they don't trust the leadership, the institutions, because of missteps on other issues. So we think that this is a chance for utilities sort of to step up. And we need to remember that CCRs are the only non-crisis communication that's mandated for utilities by law. So this is a time when utilities can creatively and proactively communicate with the public and not have to feel bad about anything. So, it's not like a water main broke and they have to now talk to the resident and say, boil your water, it'll end at this time. Nor is it a time when you say, your levels of certain contaminant were exceedingly high, so do not drink this water or do not, use it. This is a really a time when utilities can take the time and engage with their customers. In terms of eligibility, really anyone is eligible. We have no like restrictions on eligibility. We do require that one member of the team be U.S. resident with the ability to provide some sort of documentation to receive cash eligibility, cash prize. And really, if there are teams that do not have a U.S. resident but are okay with not being eligible for the cash prize, but simply want to participate, purely for showcasing their talent, then I think that's totally that's fine with us. We wouldn't have a problem. No expertise is required. You do not have to be a water chemist or a policy expert. You really can have different talents and skills, and we really hope that that there would be multidisciplinary teams with engineers and programmers and visual artists, designers sort of coming together and contributing their piece of skill and talent to these teams. And in terms of what we are looking for, really at this point, we are looking for ideas on how to reimagine and redesign these CCRs. So they can be sort of redesigns of existing paper-based, PDF documents that just look different, provide a lot more context. You have links, and it just presents information in a much more holistic way. Or it can be much more interactive, as a web page or an app with either static information or interactive information where you can change languages or change the font size. Click on something and suddenly gives you, it speaks to you. So you can have all these interactive elements in it, but that's certainly not a requirement. The outputs can range from a basic PDF to a high functioning website. We have a number of judging criteria, and they're really trying to highlight some of the elements that we are looking for. The key is health. How does this submission make it easy for somebody to understand the data on water contaminants? That's sort of our ultimate goal, and we are hoping that most, if not all, of the entries will at least focus on this particular element. We are looking for creative ways in which submission makes information on these contaminants stand out and really speak to the concerns of consumers. We are looking for accessibility in terms of ADA compliance, language requirements, things like that. It should have a certain level of engagement where the design features are, customers are easily able to engage with the data and they're able to understand. There is, as I said, there is a lot of emerging technology that could be used or established technology in a novel way to simply present this data. And then, there are other elements like, if there is a real submission that offers a dramatic improvement, taking an existing CCR and then simply molding it into a different format where, you see a huge improvement in how somebody would perceive that information. That's something, we'd be looking for. Other things are, ease of implementation. Ultimately, our goal is to take this process, the outcomes from this design challenge, and work with utilities and state agencies and EPA to integrate those design features in existing CCRs. We will be working with utilities in trying to adopt some of these features in their CCRs for the next year. So, any product that allows utilities to easily switch over from their existing platform would be greatly appreciated. And of course, we would like, submissions to include some of the best practices that EPA, sort of presents as standards, best practices would be great. And if there are places and areas where there is a conflict between a best practice and sort of an industry standard that's outside the water sector, so technology standard, then we would certainly evaluate those appropriately. Other information includes prize money. There is one $5,000 award for the overall best design. We have some other pot of money, which we might give out as smaller prizes. So, depending on the number of entries, it could be a few $2,000 prizes, for instance, that highlight sort of different criterion that we listed earlier. We prefer open source tools that we can, anybody can access. Utilities don't have to pay proprietary, software fees. But we recognize that, there are a lot of these proprietary tools and softwares, and those entries will not be penalized for using that. Winners will retain all the intellectual property rights, but they will need to grant us license to share visual and interactive elements with stakeholders during webinars, reports, live demonstrations, things like that. In terms of timeline, we are open to submissions right now, and we will be open till December 1st at 5 p.m. Eastern. We hope to close on that day at that specific time. And in between the process, if participants have questions, if you would like clarifications on how a product should look like, we will be available to answer questions and give you that feedback. We haven't decided the platform of how this will be submitted. I have to admit that we are new to this process of understanding the technology, and we are certainly looking for any kind of feedback or information you have as to what would be the best way to accept entries. That will allow us to easily gather all the data, look at your submission in full, and then be able to evaluate that using judges. We will be announcing the winners early 2021. We will have a set of judges that aren't decided yet, but they will represent various stakeholders. So we will have judges from state and federal agencies, some utilities, community organizations, other nonprofit groups that'll have a perspective, technology companies that'll have a perspective on their specific elements, but they will also they would also be able to look at it holistically and look at the design and be able to judge those. If you are interested in spreading the word, talking about it as you design your entries and getting ready for submission, encourage you to use these hashtags, tag us online on Twitter, LinkedIn, and they just keep the conversation going, and make sure that your friends and colleagues who might be appropriate fit for this sort of a challenge get to see this and are also encouraged to participate. At this point, I'm going to stop and ask that you hold your questions for just 1 minute. I'll be followed quickly by my colleague Joya Banerjee, and before that, we will have a quick poll. I'll transfer over to Joya, and we'll have some time for questions. So, second question on the poll coming. All right, I'm going to end the poll. And here are the results. So I see that we have quite a few folks who have seen the CCRs before. There are some CCR ninjas out there, so I'm excited about getting to know you folks and getting your feedback on how we can best improve CCRs and inspire trust in our water utilities. I'm gonna turn over to Joya Banerjee, who'll speak a few words.
Shri, thank you so much. And hi, everyone. I am most definitely not a CCR ninja. So I both am glad to see that there are some on the call, and also I'm glad to see that there are some folks who've never seen the CCR before, because I think that speaks to a little bit of the, Sri mentioned the potential of really what we could do with these existing requirements that share critical information with the public about their drinking water. So Shri, many thanks for, I think the polls are, it's been great to see some of the polling results, and thank you for all the information. For those who don't know me, my name is Joya Banerjee. I direct the environment program at the S.D. Bechtel Jr. Foundation. The foundation is a family foundation. We're based in San Francisco, and we provide financial support, in other words, grants, to organizations who are helping to ensure that our water system meets the needs of people and of nature now and in the future. And we are pleased to support some of the work happening at the Environmental Innovation Policy Center, including this specific project to re-envision the CCR. At the foundation, we believe that data can be a source of innovation, but perhaps even more importantly is that the water sector can use data as a tool to build trust and to really start to help advance some of the solutions that the sector sorely needs, whether that's around drinking water or a range of other challenges that we face with our water resources. The question, is my water safe to drink, is fundamental. And I believe that in order to build trust with the public, we must be able to answer it in a clear, accessible, and actionable way. And so I am so excited to see what this community can develop. And I think whether you know about CCRs and know about water, whether you don't, I think the fundamental tenet of providing essential information to the public so that they can take action accordingly is something that that we all can share the sort of value around that. And I think a lot of great ideas coming from within the water sector and from other sectors well beyond water. So I'm excited for the chance to hear from you, and definitely want to open it up to Q&A, which I'll look to Shri and some of his colleagues on the line to help manage. But I'd be curious to see or to hear any reactions to the information presented. Are there specific questions you have, and what follow-up, if any, would be helpful to you as you consider submitting an application to this process. So thanks so much, Shri, and I look forward to the conversation.
Before we open out for questions, I'm going to launch one more last poll question, and hopefully this will then help us get into the Q&A section. And impressive. I'm glad that quite a few of you are at least likely to submit in various degrees, and some have already have some ideas, and at least all of that is getting mapped out and onto pen and paper or on a computer soon. So I'm going to open this for Q&A. What sort of questions do you have about the competition? And we'll try our best to answer them now over this webinar. If we are not able to, we'll take down those questions and definitely send you some sort of a response either on our website or by email. Can I go ahead and respond to some of the, I see that we have both Q&A section and also the chat box, and our team is monitoring both of those. So I'm going to respond to Rich is a question from California on CCR reinvention. And his question is, do you know how we may acquire machine readable water quality data for other states? This is a challenge, I admit. We have not, so we did, prior to launching this design challenge, we did do a study on CCRs. We collected some randomized CCRs from across the US. I think we collected about 300 CCRs, and we had trouble doing machine reading tests on those documents. I would say we ran a battery of tests, and many CCRs failed at least some significant portion of that test. So this is a challenge. We only know that states like Maryland and Mississippi, those are the only two that I'm aware of, uh, at least allow and post their all of the state CCR in one location, so you can at least get access to all of the CCR documents. Whether they are all machine readable and to what degree, I will not be able to say. But we're happy to talk later on one-on-one on this. Lisa Andrews asking a question. Are all utilities interested in building trust? I'm not sure. um, um, to be fair, I don't know the exact response to that. My sense is that most utilities are interested to some degree in interacting, engaging with their customers. They just don't know how to. It's just so. This is a quote, not verbatim, but I heard it from one of the utility folks. I think this is in Illinois, and he said that when I first started the job, and he's about maybe 50-ish years old, so he's been in the job for 20 25 years easily. And he said that when I got into the job, I was told that your main job is to make sure that our name does not end up in the newspaper. So this is, to some degree, that's sort of the driving philosophy of all utility managers, is to make sure that nobody, so we stay in the background, nobody talks about us, because any news is bad news. And so that was sort of that was sort of the engagement that utilities had. I would say that those times have gone. That's not the case anymore. Utilities are proactive, and there are several examples, and the U.S. Water Alliance highlights quite a few of them. Many of them are their members, but they also spotlight them in various ways. So I do think that utilities are interested in engaging. It need not always be restricted to large ones. Certainly, some of the mid-sized utilities are also trying to do that. The levels of interaction vary, and they, I wouldn't be able to comment specifically, but our hope and sense is that if given the right feedback and given the right tools, utilities will want to engage with their customers. And we think that this is one of those tools that we can provide them. And we hope that this, is taken, we at least get good reception from some of the utilities who want to incorporate these interesting elements of design into their own work. As far as what sort of format, as I said, we are open to any kind of submissions. So it could be a PDF report basically redone in a different format as an image, as a PDF document that simply provides a lot more information, or at least has links and has context. But that also means that the document gets longer, and utilities certainly like to keep those documents short because they don't want to send 50 pages to somebody. But at the same time, there are other ways we can, there are websites and apps which you can design that have those creative elements incorporated, sort of in an elegant way. So I don't know the exact, what there is no. Let me rephrase. There is no particular format that we are looking for, and we are hoping that we get a diverse set of responses, and we'll be able to evaluate each of them independently. Next question is the intent to replace the CCR or provide an abstracted layer to dramatically increase awareness. Seems that overloading the idea of compliance with usability is an issue. That does seem it is a conflict in our brain when we are sort of coming up with this idea. We did encounter that thought that compliance necessarily requires usage of certain language, presenting information in a certain format. So there is this inherent conflict, and you rightly pointing that out. I don't know how to thread that needle exactly, but we are hopeful that there is a fine balance And in cases where your designs are not compliant with EPA standards, we wouldn't necessarily penalize those as long as we get a good explanation as to why that element needs to be there, even if it runs afoul of EPA standards. And we're hopeful that we'll have discussions with EPA and see if there are ways where utilities can get variance or at least use creative interpretation of the statute that we can allow those kinds of submissions to eventually be incorporated into designs. Are there other questions? I'm now looking at the chat box, and I'll turn over some of the questions to maybe is Tim available to respond?
Yeah, happy to. There's a question in the chat box about the cash prize.
Yeah.
And we're a nonprofit, and we wish we had $100,000 to give out, but we don't. So we'll do one $5,000 prize. We hope to have other prizes, maybe even additional $5,000 prizes to award. And ultimately, we think that what we're asking for here, a redesign of what an individual CCR looks like and how you can use it and interact with it, is a relatively straightforward technical question that designers and teams could put together without necessarily a huge amount of work. But recognize that you have a big team, and splitting a $5,000 prize among 10 people doesn't go very far. That's what we can do. This is the first CCR challenge, design challenge like this that we're aware of, and there's absolutely room for more of this kind of work and challenge approach to CCR visualization that's possible in the future, either from us, from states, or from individual utilities. In fact, there's a couple of other water-related design challenges like this going on now, or soon will be, like California's. So you could also imagine submitting, and Joya may want to comment on this, you could also imagine developing something for us that you also submit to another state or place that has a design challenge open, and we're happy to see that happen, and not going to penalize anyone who's competing for multiple prizes.
Yeah, happy to add to that, Tim. I think it's a good note to flag that California is also launching a data prize competition, and I believe New Mexico maybe as well. And I think the good news about that is that we're looking to coordinate those so that the timing is similar, and so that submitting to one can we can sort of cross-promote the different options. So it could be, to Tim's point, a submission to the California prize may also be eligible for this. They're separate prize competitions, so the prize amounts are different, but again, conceptually, a team could actually be awarded prizes through more than one prize forum or competition.
And Shri, I might just take one more question out of the answered ones in the Q&A, and I'll just summarize it for people. The question was about if it's an app or web portal, does the submission have to be fully built, front and back end, or can it be an illustrated design proposal, not actually built? I think we're really open-minded on that. The key for us is that we want to see the best ideas, the most creative ways that any of you have to show this information in a way that really makes it accessible and useful to consumers, to the average person, to my mom, or Joya's family, or Shri's family, right? Like, trying to make it accessible and useful. And so what we need as a product from you all is something that we can then share with others. We can say, look what someone did with, this CCR. Look at this before and after. Look at this, basically CCR makeover. We don't need the whole functioning website. That's your, creation, commercial or otherwise. But we need something that we can use well enough to show to a state, EPA, a utility, a public health group, or otherwise, share in terms of how we communicate about this challenge, afterwards. So, really, we're really open-minded on that. It's just that we need basically some visual products, or at least an interactive skeleton of something we can click through in order to be able to share those stories with other people and move forward with this project. And just I'll just keep going because I'm talking now. I see a question from Marcus Quigley. Hey, Marcus, great to reconnect with you. What's next, and will this effort provide an outlet to promote the winning ideas? Yeah, absolutely. That's how we exist and work as a nonprofit. Is we spend a lot of time trying to share information with government agency staff, with people in elected office, with people at state agencies, with, of course, people in utilities who we coordinate with as much as possible, and utility associations and associated groups, support groups, and organizations. So we want to do everything we can to take the best ideas that come to us through this competition and give each of those products an audience, right, to get them in front of other people. We see success as being, A, in the most short term, that we get good ideas and submissions, but B, that people use some of these ideas to make better, more beautiful, more useful, dramatically more useful CCRs in terms of conveying information about water quality. So, we want to get the best ideas in front of everyone we can, and we'll invest in that after this challenge is over.
I think I skipped one question from Shaz Chan. His question, I'm guessing his question was, should we be designing a new CCR, or can we use this past year CCR? I'm guessing they're from a utility. If you think that your CCR incorporates all of the elements that we listed in our judging criteria, we certainly welcome your submission as is. But this is sort of a time, the CCR has already been submitted for EPA's sort of for meeting the regulatory job. July 1 deadline over, it's all done. And usually utilities don't think about until the next March or April as to how to design or how to put together the CCR. So this is really a good time to think about that and rethink and redesign and see, are there elements that we have been doing simply because we ran out of time, or there are some constraints, regulatory or otherwise, that simply require the CCR be in a certain format. And this is a chance to sort of throw all of that out the window and maybe make some changes that wouldn't fit with EPA's sort of guidance and rules, but are totally kosher in this kind of competition. So I'd sort of let that use that decision framework and let you make a submission. Are there other questions? If not, I'm going to ask Joya and Tim to maybe say a little bit about our decision making regarding the submission platform. I know you guys have been talking a little bit. We haven't arrived on anything yet, but any sort of pointers would be helpful.
Sure. Sorry to interrupt, everyone. Tamara had a quick question on. She responded to an answer question. She was wondering if we'll consider a winner that needs a few tweaks to make sure it suits the competition's need. And that might have already tied into one of the answers given.
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Can you say that again?
Oh, sorry. Yes. She was wondering if the group will consider a winner that needs a few tweaks to the overall project design to make sure it suits the needs of the competition.
Yes. So as I said, I mean, we are looking for proof of concepts in many cases, things that are not fully built out. So we'll be certainly interested in, tweaks that you can make once. So that's the other good thing. We are open to providing feedback as you develop your product. So if you, have questions and, want to show a demo to us, we will not be judging. Like I personally would not be judging. So we will have a panel of experts. So there would be no conflict in us giving you feedback in the stages, prior to submission. That will simply allow you to, perfect that product over time.
And there is one more question in the Q&A.
Yes.
As a non-US citizen, are they eligible to apply for the prize if they enter as an individual? Do they need to be a US citizen to enter the competition altogether?
I think the standard remains the same. If I'm assuming you are a non-US citizen but have some sort of documentation of the EIN, SSN just to receive the money, this is only for those purposes. We require somebody, doesn't have to be a citizen, but if you are a US resident, I'm guessing you have some version of that. But if not, I'm hoping that you have a team member who has, so there is some way, all of those are simply necessary to make sure that we can wire you the money. It doesn't determine whether you personally are eligible for the competition. It's only for those purposes. And as I said, the last option would be if you're open to submitting your ideas but are not are willing to not participate in the prize part of it, then we have no bar altogether. Like there's no restriction on you participating. Marcus responded that using Google Forms for submissions is great. I think that works. I just don't know if you have a web, sort of a website with all the different pieces, sort of back end. If you wanted to submit that, if we can put it together. I don't know how that will play out, but we'll certainly try to keep it simple that everybody can use without having lots of technical challenges in how you submit it. And certainly makes it easy for us on our end because we have judges, who are all spatially located in different places. So trying to get them access to those submissions would also be, a key requirement for us. If there are, I'm going to leave the discussion open for maybe a couple minutes more, and if not, we'll be pretty much close to the end of our webinar. We will make this video recording available on our website in the same place where you found registration information. So if you have colleagues who simply want to watch, and gather some information, then they are welcome to listen to this. We'll make the slides available also on our website. So that's another way. And as always, our emails are open, info@waterdataprize.com. You can send an email to us directly, sort of personal email, but it'll be easier if you do it on this Water Data Prize website. That'll make sure that we are able to respond within a reasonable time frame. I would say 1 to 2 business days. We'll try to get back to you with any response. And if we are not able to, we'll give you that indication. If the question is complex beyond our understanding, we'll try to get you some sort of a response one way or another. Tim, is there anything last few words you want to say?
Yeah, I'll just, my last words are that thank you all for your interest in submitting to this challenge. I want to just sort of remind people of one of the slides that Shri showed, which was of that Arkansas Water Utilities CCR, and say how easy I hope it is to do better than we're doing today. So many CCRs are incomprehensible. I have a PhD in biology, took chemistry, organic chemistry for 2 years. I have no idea what my own CCR means for me and whether my family should be drinking my water in my house in a suburb of Washington, D.C. And that's true for millions of other people across the country. If they even see it, that's the first challenge, but once they see it, do they understand anything from that report? And I think that all of you can probably come up with ideas that just make that information a little bit more accessible and easier for the average American to say, you know what, I'm going to buy bottled water, or turn on that tap, I'm going to pour myself a glass of water. And so that's our sort of most fundamental hope. And for anyone that hasn't looked at a CCR yet, just Google the name of the town you live in and the 3 letters CCR and the word water, and you will find your CCR. And the 3 of you who are currently on, 22 of 23 of you will find a CCR that is very difficult to understand. So really hope that you all can submit things that are exciting and convey information in a better way, and that together we can build something that is a way for more Americans to be connected to and understand the quality of their water, and hopefully either trust it or support efforts to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending this webinar. And